time to finally show in action the TRS-80 Model 2 computer. Since the last update, I went through several rounds of trying to adapt a keyboard to work with this system with various problems, probably just related to my own lack of soldering skills or possibly a bad plan to begin with. I had read a series of forum posts that led me to believe that I could take a Tandy 1000 keyboard and adapt it to plug into the board on here, and I got a little bit of response, but either my soldering, which I had trouble soldering the DIN plug, so that may have been it, or it may have just been a faulty keyboard. But either way, I got lucky and this popped up on eBay recently, and I was able to secure the adapter I need to plug a PC into the external drive chassis. So I've been able to make some discs along with the one disc I already bought. But since we have the keyboard, I can kind of give a tour of the system. We'll start with the diagnostic disc, which also has the operating system on it. Give you a brief overview of the Model 2. It is a Z80 based computer like the Model 1, 3, and so on. However, it has either 32 or 64K from the factory. This one has 64. It has a card cage inside, so it has a bus similar to but not compatible to the S100 bus systems. And like those systems, while it does have its own proprietary OS, which most of the programs are on, it also has a authentic version of CP/M, actually multiple ones available for it, so it can run a large number of CP/M software titles. So you start it up, you get insert diskette. Insert the diagnostic disc to show some of the capabilities. This disc has operating system TRS-DOS loaded on it. Most applications run that way because on a single drive system you need it. You need the OS to be on the disk that you're running from. It's a little bit one thing different than regular DOS, where you may typically take the DOS disk out, run your programs, and not run into any issues. This is a little bit different. It does. Now I want to move camera slightly so it can give you a view of the screen. Before just a quick tour of that keyboard. It does need a good cleaning, but it arrived mostly functional. There is some of the typical wear on the silver finish. It's got a lot of grunginess. The inner key was missing a spring. Was the only major fault. It's not. I found a spring that works, not the exact right one, so it's a little bit stiffer. All the keys work, but the 3 key on the numeric keypad is a little bit intermittent. So at some point we may take it apart and tune that up. Probably doesn't need like the full foil job like many of these keyboards do. The diagnostics here have a lot of categories. A lot of these apply to the more upgraded versions that have a 6800 card. This does not have that. Let's do a quick demonstration. It's the video menu. One thing that tripped me up, the first thing I did when I got the keyboard is run this, and the commands, a lot of the letter-based commands are case sensitive. So I'm typing X, nothing's happening. You have to type capital X. And TRS-DOS is like that. The commands, if you type them in lowercase, they do nothing. So we get a quick so here's a demonstration sort of semi-graphics mode. The text character set available on here. This particular computer doesn't have the optional high-res graphics board, which I don't know that a lot of programs even used. So it has text characters and a set of semi-graphics characters. You can see that if I go into video test, so I got video board test, graphics board test. Graphics board test wouldn't do much on here, but video board test will, a lot of times it's easier on this computer to run with caps lock on. Let's just do a loop of all of them. Give you an idea of what the capabilities are. This tube seems to be in pretty good shape. There's a little bit of sort of artifacts over here, but everything seems to be right. The screen size is pretty standard for these. You'll notice the screen kind of judders a little bit when the floppy drive seeks, and that is also normal for these computers. It's a known issue. There is like a service bulletin that was eventually written to correct that by using adding an additional power supply or tweaking the power supply to stabilize it a little bit. So I quit the TRS-DOS so you can see dir command gives you a directory. P means it's a executable program. If it's a basic program, it won't have that. You have to run it in basic. So some of the software titles that I have for this are actually in basic. This was a time when you would a commercial software might be written in an interpreted language. Basic's not in ROM on here. It's in the TRS-DOS or the DOS you're running. TRS-DOS, LS-DOS. So, and I have a few of these. So the main one, TRS-DOS 2. I also have CPM and LS-DOS. LS-DOS is the operating system from the TRS-80 Model 4, which in theory would give this computer compatibility with Model 4 software if you somehow figure out how to get said software on here, since Model 4 software never came on each disk. So we go number of diagnostics. Not all of these are, none of them have failed that I've tested, except for the ones that require a loopback port. Also, there's a reset switch here. Does nothing because the switch is broken, so I'll have to repair or replace that. I think I can just repair it, but if not, I have another switch that we can use. We go to look at Z80 memory diagnostic, for example. Normal video RAM test graphics. So you have a number of these. So we do checkerboard RAM test, and it just does a test. Everything passed. I think I got very lucky on this system because all the boards that came with it actually work. No failed ICs or capacitors or anything. Really no real problems with this unit other than figuring out how to connect it. I had to modify the connections on the back of this drive to enable the work about the terminating plug. The drive terminator plug that you're supposed to get with this system is actually just a loop back. The terminating resistors are in the drive, and there's a sort of loop back jumper that you can remove that allows you to just use this disc alone. I have the drive chassis currently set up in the lab to make disk images from. Let's do like a video RAM test. That's what your video RAM test looks like. You can see pretty much the whole character set. We've got a few other programs we can demonstrate. Most of the software is like business software. Did download a couple of games discs from the Model 2 archive, which is very comprehensive. But on top of serious software, here is a typical Tandy package. This is Tandy's word processor called ScriptSit. So, and I have a test document on here to kind of show off. So, your standard word processor of the time for your normal documents. Of course, no kind of graphical user interfaces because it's just kind of not the way things were done back then. So Control Q gets you back to the menu. So these programs is pretty vital to have the manual. There's some online help for DOS, but obviously this is a very. Let's go in here and check out VisiCalc, which exists as a direct Model 2 program. Performance on this seems to be alright. You see the cursor, retrace glitches there. And 64K isn't the limit on here. There's room for other RAM boards, although I don't know, if all the programs can take advantage of that in all the operating systems. So I'm not entirely fully versed on how formulas work in this. Kind of used to Microsoft Excel versus that. So you have spreadsheets and word processing, all handled. Whereas these 8-inch discs do hold a pretty decent amount of data compared to the older type. One thing to sort of keep in mind is that this is a single-sided drive, so the discs go in label side out. However, the drive read head is actually on the back side, so it's kind of like a laser disc. You put the side up corresponding to the opposite side that's actually being read. Single-sided disc and double-sided are not interchangeable, unfortunately. Here's a double-sided disc. Single-sided disc, even if the media is correct, the index hole, which is essential for the drive to function correctly, is in a different location, which begs the question, possibly if somebody was to, notch the index hole out to this position, could you then use this in a single-sided drive as well? Don't know. I might be willing to risk that disc to try it, since I don't have any double-sided systems. These discs are somewhat pricey, as you may guess, because they've been out of print for an exceedingly long time. Let's take a look. There were a very few games natively for it. Of course, there was a few things, there's Zork and stuff on CPM, but there were actually a few games on TRS DOS. Or BASIC. I don't have all of them imaged out here, but I can show you a couple items. There were a couple of text adventures made, but a lot of them are, games even commercially released are actually in BASIC. See, these are all not executable. If you try to run them, you're just going to get an error. These are actually under BASIC. There's pretty reasonable iteration of BASIC on here. That comes with TRS DOS. This Model 2 BASIC Rev 1.2, not to be confused with Level 2 BASIC for the Model 1. And you run Swarm. Quite primitive, so your keys are, and all the games on this pretty much are the left and right, greater than, less than symbols, and the space bar. I think some of these, the enter key does something. On this one, the enter key just kind of warps you around. So this is a very primitive Galaga-ish thing, although you can only have one shot on screen at a time. Does seem to bog at times. It's running at a full 4 megahertz, which is for these Z80 systems is pretty quick. Your Model 1, Model 3s use the same processor at a much slower clock speed, and of course a lot less RAM. And it doesn't have bitmap graphics capabilities about that option board, but that wasn't really a need for this kind of computer because it is a very expensive business system. And some of the pages, I don't have image offhand, include some pre-packaged business software. I've checked out a couple in the emulator that, like a job cost software. System takes you back to DOS. Very select pre-packaged solutions, file management, payroll, things like that. And it was marketed as such a thing because it was thousands of dollars. You probably spend $3,000–4,000 in 1980 something for a setup with this, and you would be using it as pretty much the main computer for your company. So let's see, looks like half the RAM is available to basic. I guess is alright. 32K was a reasonable amount of RAM available to basic at that time. So here's a game that is all about trying to land a parachute on a target. Yeah, nothing too groundbreaking there. But my goal of getting some of these games on here is not to actually like play around with it so much as to have something to show off at VCF. So VCF Southwest, my main exhibition. The one thing I want to make sure to have ready here is this system. Be able to show it off along with the second drive chassis, which I'll have that running too. It works. The second drive doesn't work, but the first drive in it does. So I'll be able to have a 2-disc system. Here's another one, and this is another one that runs off of basic. So I've done some a little bit of like pre-running of these and troubleshooting offline and in the emulator just to make sure I have working images before I burn them to the disk. These are all really very basic. Some of these don't even work without a printer. The right graphics actions, the pictures are all based on, directly to the printer. They use L-print commands in BASIC. If you don't have a printer, you just get an error. So let's do pictures. You've got a selection of pictures you can print out: Enterprise, Star Wars, Snoopy, Love, D-Plot, and Nude. So let's pick one. You don't have a printer connected to the port. Hello, what is your name? Are you a friend? And you get IO error 9. Which the reason it errors out is L-print. It goes to the printer, and it must be like a bidirect. It must be get some kind of feedback, or the printer isn't set up. The run command in BASIC allows you to load files from there. So you have some of the standard ones, like your standard Star Trek game. A couple of versions of that. There's multiple versions of Lunar Lander. They all look identical, except only the last one seems to completely work. So I don't know So this one's a little more complicated. It's got like a whole list of commands. So here you have a 10 by 10 grid, and it gives you your directions to the target from that. So, well, that's simple enough. What's my first guess? Well, we'll just do 5, 5. Go southeast. Well, so we produced the area down to quarters. Let's say 2, 8. Go southeast. 1, 9. So it's like you know, pretty much you can always do it within 4 moves because of the size of the grid. I don't even know what the meaning of that game is.